We're here because free speech is under attack. We're here because people are being convinced that socialism works. We're here because people are being judged guilty until proven innocent. We are fighting back with facts. This is not a safe zone, so buckle up, Buttercup. This is the raw, naked truth.
Indictments, lawsuits, and more. Welcome to the Raw Naked Truth. I'm your host, Eric Lupkin, and here's the news you need to know. A Manhattan grand jury has voted to indict former President Donald Trump over his role in hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels during his 2016 presidential campaign. Trump, who is expected to surrender Tuesday, is the first former president to face criminal charges. Trump's then-fixer, Michael Cohen, says he arranged a $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels, who claimed she had an affair years earlier with Trump, which he denies. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's investigation has focused on whether Trump's company falsified records to cover up checks reimbursing Cohen. Trump, now running for the 2024 GOP presidential nomination, said he is a completely innocent person and accused Bragg, a Democrat, of a political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. Emails to the Federal Election Committee cast doubt on Cohen's claims. Additionally, questions remain about what the exact charges are. Charges mentioned are falsifying business records and campaign finance violations. But Bragg does not have jurisdiction to prosecute campaign finance violations, and the charges of falsifying business records are long past the statute of limitations. The Biden administration on Thursday condemned Russia's arrest of Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. Russian authorities detained the 31-year-old reporter, a Russian speaker whose parents emigrated to the U.S. from the Soviet Union, on espionage charges, making him the first American journalist Moscow has accused of spying since the Cold War. The two countries have butted heads several times recently about the arrests of each other's citizens and over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre repeated the Biden administration's warning against Americans traveling to Russia. It is not safe, she said. Secretary of State Antony Blinken condemned Kremlin efforts to intimidate, repress, and punish journalists and civil society voices. Virgin Orbit, which developed a system to put satellites in orbit using a modified 747 jet that drops rockets mid-flight, is halting operations for the foreseeable future, CEO Dan Hart told employees Thursday. Unfortunately, we've not been able to secure the funding to provide a clear path for this company, Hart said, according to CNBC, which obtained a recording of his remarks. We have no choice but to implement immediate, dramatic, and extremely painful changes. The company plans to eliminate about 90% of its staff, leaving it with 100 workers. Hart said people who are laid off will get severance and extended health benefits and a direct pipeline to available jobs at sister company Virgin Galactic. 9 soldiers were killed when 2 Army Black Hawk helicopters crashed during a training exercise in Kentucky, the Fort Campbell Army Base said early Thursday. All 9 soldiers were members of the 101st Airborne Division based at Fort Campbell. The HH-60 Blackhawks, which were used for medical evacuation, were being flown with night vision goggles. The Army did not immediately identify the soldiers publicly. Tim Gore, a church pastor in North Carolina, said his son, 25-year-old Staff Sergeant Caleb Gore, was one of the soldiers killed. He described his son as a gentle giant who is training to be a registered nurse. His passion was search and rescue, he said. Japan said Friday it will restrict exports of 23 types of semiconductor manufacturing equipment bringing it in sync with restrictions the United States announced in October to curb China's access to chip-making technology and slow its technological and military advances. Japan, which has major chip makers like Nikon and Tokyo Electron, didn't single out China as a target for its policy, but said it wanted to prevent advanced chip technology from being used for military purposes. We are fulfilling our responsibility as a technological nation to contribute to international peace and stability, Minister for Economy, Trade, and Industry Yasutoshi Nishimura said. President Biden urged financial regulators to tighten rules for mid-sized banks, his strongest response so far to the financial turmoil triggered by the failure of two banks last month. Biden called for requiring banks to shield themselves from potential losses and keep enough cash on hand to get through a crisis. Regulators could accomplish the proposals without congressional action. Biden's plan would subject more banks to annual stress tests to determine whether they are strong enough to weather events like the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate hikes, which have been identified as a factor in Silicon Valley Bank's failure this month. The Arizona Democratic Party has filed a lawsuit against the state's top election administrator and No Labels, seeking to reverse the moderate group's recognition as a political party for the 2024 elections, according to Democratic officials. The lawsuit in state court in Phoenix reflects growing concern in Democratic circles that a No Labels third-party ticket in 2024 will jeopardize the re-election hopes of President Biden and make it harder for Democrats to maintain control of the Senate. The lawsuit claims that Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, who is a Democrat, made an error in accepting signature petitions for the No Labels party. Prominent Democrats have been making false statements about No Labels because they fear a moderate alternative will derail their political ambitions. That's the Raw Naked Truth. You can catch every episode of the Raw Naked Truth at xvadio.com/podcast, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech. We'll see you next time.